All right, fellas, I know we've made a lot of videos about Void 3.0, but your man's hyped for a lot of reasons. Number one, we're essentially going to be returning to customizable light subclasses. Now, I know we had it back inside of Destiny 1, and I know many of you will point out its flaws, but considering what we've seen with the fragment and aspect system here with our stasis subclasses, I really think that there's going to be a lot of potency with these 3.0 version of our subclasses and just overall more flexibility, which is what you want in a game like Destiny. Now, with that being said, we've already covered our Warlocks, our Voidwalkers, and essentially just went over abilities from Destiny 1 that we would like to see in Void 3.0. Today, guys, we're going to be doing the exact same thing for the Sentinel Titan. Now, Sentinel is kind of interesting, right? Because it's actually going to be split up in Witch Queen between our Sentinel and just our outright Defender. And back inside of Destiny 1, we didn't have a Sentinel Titan. We just had a Defender Titan. So there's a lot that I'm not going to be able to pull from because we're walking into unknown territory here with our Sentinel Titans outside of what we already have in the game. So first, I'm just going to bring up some of the things we've already seen with some of the gameplay and breakdowns that we've done. One being the Sentinel Titan Overwatch aspect. Essentially, guys, that is a Void Empowered barricade that grants a Void Overshield to yourself and nearby allies. This barricade also slowly regenerates the Void Overshield of allies bunkering behind it. Now, this does sound more like a Defender ability, and the question is there going to be a difference between Defender and Sentinel completely, or is it just going to be based on some sort of selection within its menu? And that's probably going to be the case. We do know that Defender Titan and its bubble will have a faster cooldown than our Sentinels. Matter of fact, bubble is going to move up to the same regen time as well as Radiance. So there's going to be a separation there. I'm assuming some sort of selection within the menu, and then these aspects and fragments will still be applicable to both. Now, there's also the shield toss, which we saw some gameplay of, which is just a projectile melee where you can actually hurl the shield towards your enemy. Now, this is not part of the super. This is just the melee. The shield can actually ricochet off of enemies and surfaces, and while doing so, will grant you a small chunk of overshield for each enemy hit. Now, with that being said, I want to just dive back into the Defender Titan subclass from Destiny 1 and go over some abilities you may have forgotten. Now, back inside of Destiny 1, you had an option to select Ward of Dawn and then the type of bubble that you wanted. Armor of Light, which of course gives you significant damage resistance while inside of your Ward of Dawn. You also have Blessing of Light, which passing through Ward of Dawn grants you and your allies temporary shields. Now, we don't have that inside of Destiny 2, but we do have Helm of the Saint 14, which grants you an overshield when passing through the bubble, while simultaneously blinding enemies that enter it. Then you also had Weapons of Light, where passing through Ward of Dawn grants you and your allies that increase in weapon damage. This is already granted to us with our default bubble, so I don't really think the bubble is going to change all that much, but perhaps Bungie may give a Blessing of Light option to select over Weapons of Light. Now, the melee abilities themselves, back inside of D1, you had War Machine, Gift of Light, and Unbreakable. Now, Destiny 2, we have some pretty good melee abilities. You've got Tactical Strike, which of course applies those void detonators and explosions. You've got Rallying Force on top tree that synergizes there with Defensive Strike that creates an overshield for you and nearby allies. Final Blows also grant energy when the overshield is active. And then you have an entire shield bash on bottom tree. Of course, you're seeing the overlap here. The big one is Gift of Light, where while Force Barrier is active, all your melee kills create Orbs of Power, or back inside of Destiny 1, Orbs of Light. This is a big deal, guys, because Orb creation next season on some fundamental level will get a nerf. And secondly, there are so many mods that take advantage of orbs now, way more than anything did back inside of Destiny 1. You've got High Energy Fire, Better Together, Protective Light, all of which can be immediately procced after simply getting a melee kill while that overshield is around you. And then of course you have Unbreakable, where Force Barrier continually recharges. Now, I know Rallying Force gives you your health back upon getting those melee kills, but the fact that this continually recharges, you can already start imagining what we can do here, especially with exotics like No Backup Plans. Run in there, get a shotgun kill off, boom, proc Defensive Strike. Sheik loves to use this exotic. Imagine synergizing this with Unbreakable, where you're constantly getting back your overshield. Sound nasty? Yeah. Now, some other perks. We had Bastion, which actually increases the duration of Ward of Dawn. Now, depending on what you were actually doing, having that extended Ward of Dawn, that extended bubble, didn't necessarily help you, especially if it was like a damage phase that was very short. But there were times, though, that increase in duration was nice. You also have Relentless, where it increases the strength and duration of Force Barrier. I just mentioned a second ago about No Backup Plans being so nasty. They were also nasty back inside of Destiny 1, but you got Relentless Relentless, pair it with something like Unbreakable and no backup plans. You see the synergy, fellas? You literally will just put a shotgun on, run around, get a kill, and just keep chugging, baby. You got an overshield around you. It's got increased duration and strength. Oh, on top of that, it continually recharges. Oh, no backup plan inside of Destiny 2. What makes it even more special than what it was back inside of Destiny 1 is that shotgun final blows give you more melee energy. You see the cycle, fellas? Is this not looking like we're gonna be absolute apes while playing Sentinel Defender? Now, another perk was Gift of the Void. Sound similar? Sounds like Embrace the Void, right? But essentially, if your Ward of Dawn takes damage from enemy fire, it creates additional orbs of light. You can understand that something like Gift of the Void with Alpha Lupi or Alpha Lupi could just be an absolute orb generator. Alpha Lupi, fellas, is low-key a very good exotic, but essentially it generates additional orb of power from supers and of course a healing pulse when your barricade is active. You can imagine rocking something like Crest of Alpha Lupi alongside the new Overwatch aspect, alongside Gift of the Void, and creating orbs of light for your teammates on top of additional orbs of light. You see where things get crazy? It's like a quadra deck of synergy. I love it. Now, the final traits is where things start to get even more interesting. Untouchable reduces the cooldown time of Ward of Dawn. Now, maybe not that big of a deal back inside of Destiny 1, although it would clutch up games at times, but inside of Destiny 2, if something like Untouchable was actually present, considering Ward of Dawn is actually going to be moved to a tier 5 super regeneration, which will be the fastest with Well of Radiance, if we have something like Untouchable, it will be the fastest regenerating super in the game. Now, there was also Iron Harvest, where heavy weapon kills have a chance to create orbs of light for your allies. Dude, I'm telling you, like, we're hoping this orb change for our weapons and Weapons 3.0 and weapon crafting really is the play. Like, I'm hoping that us losing orbs, and I know we're not completely losing orbs because, of course, we're gonna have a helmet mod that we can slot, but again, we're limited on helmet mod space, and of course, what's even the cost of this mod, and of course, the energy type having to match. Fellas, I just don't know. What I can tell you though is something like Iron Harvest, especially in things like GMs where you're running and gunning and you're constantly getting heavy weapon kills and you have it create orbs of light for your allies and they rock something like Powerful Friends so that when they become charged with light, you become charged with light. Do you see the synergy, fellas? Am I the only one rock hard right now? Now, the final ability is Illuminated. Now, this actually increases the benefits granted by Blessings of Light and Weapons of Light. Now, back inside of Destiny 1, this actually increased the shield strength from 65 to 95, and Weapons of Light used to be a 25% increase in damage, but with Illuminated, it was a 35% increase in damage. This duration, of course, lasts for 10 seconds. Now, inside of Destiny 2, all around, the bubble's just better. You've got 35% without having to do any of this, and the duration is even longer. Back inside of Destiny 1, though, people would actually pair Illuminated with Glasshouse, if you remember that Titan Helmet exotic. Essentially, Glasshouse gave you the perk Bathe in Light, where your Blessings of Light and Weapons of Light would last longer, giving you that total 15-second duration. So I guess the question is, are we getting Glasshouse back? Will we have Weapons of Light grant even more damage past the default 35%? Or would Illuminated essentially just be a flat buff in duration and nothing more? A lot of questions here in regards to the traits found on the old Defender Titan subclass tree. The main thing I wanted to point out is how many good traits and abilities are over there. And last but not least, one of the things I greatly miss on the Defender class from Destiny 1 is spike grenades. Like, what the hell, Bungie? Like, don't get me wrong, I like void wall grenades, but I miss my spike grenades. Can you imagine spike grenades with controlled demolition? The amount of void explosions would be orgasmic. I'm sure we're gonna have those options though, or at least I'm hoping so. I know there's a lot of buzz that we'll be able to actually slot different abilities from other classes, like a Sentinel Titan with Devour, or a Warlock with Invis, or a Hunter with Shield Bash. I have no idea if it's gonna get that crazy. Either way it goes up, we had some wonderful abilities back inside of Destiny 1, and I do want more new abilities than old abilities, but man, I would love it if Bungie actually took some of these abilities and brought them back in D2 and maybe even merged some of them. Like the idea of Unbreakable and Relentless being a perk in one. Make it a fragment. It would be nasty. Well, guys, if you're new here, feel free to subscribe. We cover everything Destiny related, and we're also going to be covering our Hunters next. We'll be diving back into the OG Night Stalker way. I actually have some old gameplay that I want to show y'all because let me just tell you, the animation that Hunters used to do with Shade Step back in the day, look, I hated it, but it was beautiful. The question is, are we going to see that again? So fellas, if you're interested in seeing that content, feel free to subscribe, fellas. We'll have that video out later this week. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.